This is The Guardian.
Hi everybody, Max here. I hope you're well. Happy New Year. It is 10 to 9 in the evening, Melbourne time. So just before I head out to a warehouse rave to sing in the new year with Don Fisher, Alf Stewart and Ailsa. Just to say that Wayne Rooney was sacked by Plymouth just after we finished recording the podcast. So there is no mention of it. But there is a small mention of Man United's form and Ipswich's win and Sir Gareth Southgate. Well, here it is. Have a lovely new year. Bye. Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. Ruben Amorim says being Manchester United manager is a bit embarrassing and relegation is a possibility. Happy New Year. An opening half hour where Manchester United players found it virtually impossible to kick the ball, certainly not in the right direction. Newcastle hammered them at the start of this game. Who could have predicted Tonali, Guimaraes and Joelinton would be too much for Christian Eriksen and Casemiro? A huge win for Ipswich Town against Chelsea, their first home win of the season and richly deserved. They were brilliant all over the pitch, but Liam Delap was something else. Let's not get carried away. But how will he celebrate when he leads the line for Thomas Tuchel's World Cup winning England side in 2026? Brighton get a late and probably deserved equaliser at Villa, and a lovely one too. And then Arise Sir Gareth will discuss his knighthood, answer your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hello.
Nooruddean Choudry, Happy New Year.
Hello and Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you too, John Brewin.
Happy New Year to you, Max Rushden.
Thanks so much. Happy New Year, Barry, by the way. I didn't.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I was about to, you're not hoping I'll have a happy New Year.
I know you'll have a Happy New Year, Barry.
I hope you've had an annus horribilis.
Neil says, could be an all-timer for a Man United heavy panel, going by the first 10 minutes of this game. G.R. Smith, as a United fan, should we just disband, admit it's been a mostly decent 100 years and pack up? And I probably would have led with Ipswich had Ruben Amorim not come out afterwards and said, our club needs a shock and we have to understand that. It's why I speak of relegation. That is really clear, the possibility, and we have to fight. It's a really difficult moment, one of the more difficult moments in the history of Manchester United, and we have to address it with honesty and be clear that we have to fight in the next game against Liverpool. It's worth pointing out. Noz, you can start. I mean, they're interesting. He doesn't really think they're in a relegation scrap, does he? Do you?
I mean, he should, because why not? Like that well used term, too good to go down. United aren't too good to go down, are they? And like by any metric, they're not too good to go down. Like if you go through the team, there's nothing in there that you can kind of think, oh, they'll be safe because they've got that goal scorer, or they create a lot of chances, or they're quite sort of secure at the back. There's nothing about the team where you kind of think, okay, well that'll get them out of trouble. And we'll obviously go on to Ipswich shortly, but that's a team that looks like a team. They've got a plan and they know what they're good at and what they're not good at. With United, There's nothing to hang on to at the moment. It's a weak team, and also it's weak mentally. And if there's one thing that's going to get you relegated, it's having a weak mentality.
One win in 6 in the league, which is the Manchester derby, where they were, losing until very late on. 3rd straight home defeat in all competitions, which I think is the first time that's happened since 1963, which is weird because it feels like it happens all the time now. John, opening thoughts?
Manchester United are shite, aren't they? This doesn't feel unfamiliar, shall we say. This feels like Man United go through myriad crises over the last 10 years. But is this one the deepest? I was listening to Amorim. I was at the Ipswich press room, listening to that and thinking, oh no. Like, you can't really say those type of things. And I was reminded of another previous Manchester United manager talking about relegation and being hammered for it. But that was David Moyes when he was at Sunderland. Remember that? When he started the season and said, oh yeah, we're in a relegation battle after the first game. You can't really say those things, especially when you're manager of Manchester United. Now, maybe Ruben Amorim will break the mold. Chatting to a colleague and friend last night, we were talking about the the psyche of the modern Manchester United fan. Now, Nos is a bit more switched on to this. You still actually attend that goddamn place. I, for various reasons, do not. I'd be interested to go back there if I had a spare 66 quid to just see the mentality of fans, because I get the impression there's a few fans that are, hey, we've seen there, we did it, we had the greatest time ever. I'd be one of those. There are those that are now I just go to the game for a drink and a laugh and a beer, and then there are those that are like, I hate these people, and I hate what this club has become. And I could be sort of all of those things, because Manchester United is so many things. They're a glorious club, but now they're absolute rubbish, and they're also embarrassing to be associated with. Now, Nos again will know a bit more about this. Manchester United used to be the other two may laugh at this, they used to have a bit of cool about them, a bit of sort of, swagger, a bit of we're Man United, we're the most famous club in football, George Best, Eric Cantona, all these things. What you got now? What have you got now?
There's very little. I mean, it's a good point. Like growing up, because there's an argument to be made that Busby's era and Fergie's era are actually anomalies, and really what Manchester United are
a city.
yeah, basically. And it's kind of like it's that. And again, like that thing about being cool, it feels like an anathema to United, because they feel like this big behemoth, this big clunking financial machine. But it was this thing about a glamour, about playing well, like exciting. It used to mean like 2 or 3 cups a decade, but it was exciting. Beat anyone. You always had characters. You always had McGrath. You always had Remy Moses, Brian Robson, that kind of player. But I completely agree with what John's saying. Like, what is there now?
I mean, but you had this idea. I mean, I live in London, lived in London a long time, and I live in the East End of London. I meet a lot of Cockney Reds, right? And the Cockney Reds got into the team in the 70s because, and we can't ignore this, because of the Cockney Red Army, because of like hooliganism, because also Man United played a style of football which was exciting. When they got relegated in 1973-4, Matt Busby turned to Tommy Docherty and said, let's just play the right way when we go down. Let's not play Sean Dyche football, as it was still known back then.
I'm glad he called it that then.
Yeah. Let's not play Sean Dyche football in 1974. Let's play the right way. Let's go down the right way. Man United came back up the right way. And, you had Gordon Hill, you had Steve Coppell, you had these exciting players. And, you speak to Cockney Reds, oh, yeah, I fell in love with that. I loved that team. And, the 80s was essentially a retread of that. What is the fan in 2025 is... They're not getting anything like that. They're just getting this clunking, financial, defaulting machine and a shit football team.
Yeah, they certainly didn't get much in the first half hour here, Barry. And we will get on to how good Newcastle were, but it was astonishing, wasn't it? Like they couldn't... There's a moment where Casemiro sort of took a shot and it went over the stand. Like it was just sort of extraordinary. It felt like England-Iceland.
Look, Newcastle went into this game on a good run of form, 4 wins out of 4. I think this was Manchester United's 5th defeat this month in the league, I think. But Newcastle must have looked at the United team sheet and they see Casemiro and Christian Eriksen in midfield and just been licking their lips and rubbing their hands together.
They went down with the team in 74, actually.
Because neither of those... They're both well past their best and neither of them can run. So to put them up against Jimenez, Joe Linton and Sandro Tonali on current form is almost an act of cruelty. And you wonder, what was Ruben Amorim thinking? What has he seen on the training ground that made him think this is a good idea? Now, to be fair, some of this is on Bruno Fernandes for getting a stupid suspension, for getting sent off in their last game. United were duly overrun for the first half hour and Newcastle scored 2, should have scored more and might have been a little concerned when Amorim made the change, took off the totally ineffective Xerxes and brought on Kobbie Mainoo instead, and United improved after that. but were still thoroughly deserved winners. But if you look around Old Trafford, right, you've got up in the stand all the executives sitting in a row. Dion Fanning, the Irish journalist, has now famously described as the Politburo of bullshit. They're looking down, looking glum, and the worst things you think they're all going to be watching their own backs and, worrying about their own positions rather than the good of the club. You've got disaffected players on the bench. You've got someone who's clearly not good enough being subbed off after half an hour and being, jeered off by his own fans. This is a club who spent 500 million quid in the last 3 years. What have they got for it? I think, it's far too early to have a go at Amorim and say, oh, he's the bad choice. But I think he has to take a lot of the blame for what happened last night, because that team selection was bizarre, extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first game where Amorim was the person to blame, because the funny thing is that once that change was made and Mainu came on, it improved a lot. And again, it's from a very low bar, but it improved a lot. United was still second best, but you could see the change in the team. And like Barry says, it made no sense to have those two players in there together. That was on Amorim, and also the two defensive fullbacks. Again, that was on Amorim. But I really, really like Amorim. I think the biggest weakness he's shown, or the lack of judgment, is actually joining United, because it's where reputations die. That's the biggest concern in terms of his judgment. But I do think he's an excellent coach, and I do think he's got the charisma and personality to be Manchester United manager. And also even the fact when he said United aren't discounted from the relegation sort of battle, he is very, very honest, and I think that's a credit to him. Usually what would happen with a team like United is they just throw money at Liam Delap or another player, and they can't do that now because of PSR. So there's no obvious solution to this. All he can do is try and improve the players he's got, and also try and get rid of a few players just to sort of for PSR, and also to sort of release funds to sign players. So it's not a good situation, and at the moment you kind of wonder how United get out of it, because as much as you kind of think, oh, United have got more resources and have more of a pulling power than, say, Sporting. Sporting, you can change the team quite quickly. You can get rid of players, you can get other players in and get a team that you want. With United, it's such a clunking machine that it's so hard to get rid of players. It's so hard. Like, Rashford wants to go. United would be happy for him to go. He's not going to go, because where does he go? Who can afford him? Who wants him for that money?
It is kind of sad that Erik ten Hag wasn't there to say, actually, that first half hour was quite good. Don't believe what you saw. But there is a question, John, about Amorim, a sort of Ange type question about, being an ideologue. And I think the comparisons probably aren't fair on Amorim. Ange has been there a year and a half. We have that conversation every week, so we don't have it now. Amorim hasn't been there long, but still, this idea of we are going to play this system, despite it being glaringly obvious that these players can't do it right now. Like, they might learn, or once you get through the players, as Noz has already said, it's very hard to change them. So at what point does he go, actually, I might have a back four just for a few weeks because I don't want to get relegated?
There is an argument that in English football in particular, systems don't tend to last that long. They work for a while, and then the nature of English football, its physical nature, the pace that it's played at top level, I should say. Although, having said that, I was at Macclesfield Town against Leek on Boxing Day. Leek won, well done, Leek Town. And there was a chap next to me talking about the systems playing at Macclesfield v Leek, and I'm thinking we've taken a wrong turn here. I don't think. I mean, Robbie Savage would be the guy putting the system down.
Well, I can beat you there, John. A captain I had back in the UK sent me and two other forward players how Chelsea press. And I was like, come on, I've got one knee. Lee's always offside, and Igor's coming off a 10-hour shift as a carpet fitter. I don't think we're not going to press like that. But anyway, carry on.
The successful managers in English football have all had something of a philosophy but being massive pragmatists. And that includes Jurgen Klopp, who had this idea of how to play, gegenpressing or whatever. But eventually, he shifted it to a system that fitted English football. Pep Guardiola has shifted the team around loads and loads and loads. The problem is that he's forgotten how to do that at the moment, but he did do it for a very long time, very successfully. Jose Mourinho too. And you've got these people, this season has been quite, because you've had Russell Martin, bless him. You've had Ange, who has to say the same thing every week. And I do fear that Ruben Amorim will have to say the same thing every week about 3-4-3. The fact is, if you play 3-4-3, as we saw with Newcastle, if the opposing team has got speedy wingers and fullbacks, you're exposed. You really are. Lewis Hall, Anthony Gordon.
That left side, Hall and Gordon is so good, isn't it?
Yeah, they're so good. If you're against someone like that, you're in trouble. You've got to find a way of, it's pragmatism. Will there come a day when 3-4-3 becomes a sort of 3-4-2-1, and then suddenly he's got to do it on the quiet now because he's set out his stall? These are top footballers, supposedly. Why can't the buggers adapt to what he's saying? How hard is it for some of these people? To say, right, you go, you just do what you're going to do, because we all remember the days of utility players where it's like, can you just go out? Can Alan Harper and Phil Neville, or you name these people?
No, I take your point, but I guess isn't the point is you're coming up against teams that who are well coached and have all these moves and they're so trained that if you just sort of say, here's what you're doing, lads, actually it is much harder to adapt because of how there's an opposition there.
Yeah, I suppose you've got a coach in an adaptability, or the sort of automaton thing that City appear to have had for many years that has now failed them. They've lost that on the training ground, and it appears that, say, City now, Pep's answer to the problem is to train them more, and they lose it more. I don't know, maybe Amorim's just got to be a bit more chilled out about it. I don't know, but it's not working. That's the truth of it.
Just on the formation, I think that's a bit of a red herring in terms of like playing five at the back. I don't think that's so much the issue, because Amorim made the very good point after the game in the presser afterwards, where multiple reports were saying, like, basically suggesting he's being stubborn and why don't you just go back to 4-4-2. And Amorim made the good point that, like, we were shit, like United was shit when they were playing 4-4-2 before I came. So that's not going to be the solution. I think the biggest problem that Amorim's got, or that he needs to sort of sort out, is the rotation. This rotation of players that he's doing at the moment, United's squad aren't good enough for that. So he's got to pick the best players for this formation. And go with that as much as possible, because that's the only way you can do it. So Ahmed stays as an attacking wing back. You don't play that midfield. You play Mainu and Ugarte as much as you can. But it's that thing. I think it's less the system. It's more the players. Like, he needs to play his best players for this formation and kind of cut out the rotation as much as possible, because this squad can't rotate in this formation at the moment.
That's the pragmatic part. Pick your best team. Right, you're my best team. Here's my Europa League team. Let's just get through the season. Then we go back to it and hopefully stay up.
It's a quick one on Xerxes, Noz, because that is like it's sad for any player to get hooked that early, but like the joy in the crowd in the stadium when he was hooked. God, you felt sorry for that guy.
It was so cruel. I generally, like, as John said, like I do go to games, so like, generally, the idea is that the match-going fans are more pragmatic and more reasonable than some of the online sort of supporters. But that was so cruel. I felt so sorry for him. And when he sort of looked like he stormed off to the changing room, not one person watching on TV or sort of the pundits or whatever was sort of saying, "Oh, this is petulance." Everyone felt so sorry for him. He did look as if he was going to cry. And also this idea of like. After the match, Amorim was asked about, do you think that this was the right sort of team that he picked? And then he straight away said, "Oh, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about Joshua." That wasn't the issue. The issue was the midfield. And I felt hooking Xerxes wasn't because he was really, really bad, because they were all really, really bad. It was because that midfield needed Mainu, so he had to take somebody off, and Xerxes was that player. But I think what Xerxes shows is, for anyone, Manchester United is a big draw because of the wages, because of the fame, because of like your social media following will quadruple. But for any young player, I think Xerxes is a bit of a morality tale of like, do you need this hassle in your life? If you're an exciting young player and you see Xerxes come to United, and within months is being, and it wasn't even booze when he came off. There was cheers because people were cheering that he was being substituted, and you kind of look at that and think, why would I want to subject myself to that? There's a myriad of other clubs where I can enjoy myself, enjoy my football, and be more successful than United at the moment. And yeah, that was one moment that I just thought, like, I think the fans really let themselves down.
And he's not the first, right? There is a list of young prospects who go to Manchester United in recent years, and it doesn't work out. Baz, it is worth pointing out, especially in that half hour, and even given how bad Manchester United were, Newcastle United just had everything that they didn't. They had a balance. They had, just both down the right, especially the left. They were so strong.
Yeah, Lewis Hall's a great young player. Hugely impressive, having a great season. That Manchester United midfield was incredibly easy to play through, but they did it so well, and so just popping passes around. I think it was the second goal, just completely bypassed the United midfield with 3 passes. Then there was the one where they almost walked the ball into the net. Sandro Tonali ended up hitting the post when I'm not sure how he missed, but that again, just brilliant. Ping, ping, ping. You can only beat what's in front of you. They made the pitch really big, massive, kept hogging the touchlines and ran rings around them. Absolutely ran rings around them. And it's not, Newcastle have had a quite weird season, I think. They were getting points, but they weren't playing well. And then they were playing well, but they weren't getting the points their performances deserve. But they've really hit their stride now. And I presume they will hope for a top 4 finish, and it certainly doesn't seem beyond them.
Yeah, I suppose, look, I suppose if there's a positive, perhaps not for Man United, because it doesn't look like they'll string a load of results together, but 5 wins in a row from Newcastle, which is not easy in the Premier League, but that has put them into 5th place. And there are lots of sides, probably down to Man United in 14th, who could go on a good run and put themselves in a position like that. Anyway, yeah, great win for them. They were very good.
Well, I think United, there's a very good chance they will string a run of results together. They just won't be good results. I mean, Liverpool away next, then Arsenal in the FA Cup. Oof.
Oh, killer. Well, anyway, look, that'll do for part 1. Part 2, we'll talk about Ipswich's first home win in the Premier League. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Ipswich 2, Chelsea 0. John, you were there. I saw Simon Johnson, Athletic, write this morning. Ipswich fans provided the best atmosphere I've heard anywhere in quite a while during the win against Chelsea. If they make that kind of noise in every game, the team will surely have a chance of staying up. Is that your feeling? Was it rocking at Portman Road?
Well, I was actually sat next to Simon, so
right,
yeah,
okay.
I share his view on it. It was one that we agreed on. But actually, I would say that every time I've been at Ipswich this season, I think that might be the 6th this season, the atmosphere is always good. Even games when they've lost.
They should be cutting to you as much as they cut to Ed Sheeran if you've been that many times.
And who should I pass in the corridor last night?
Oh, yeah?
Ed Sheeran. Yes,
Right.
Indeed. With security goon. Yeah, there you go. I'm taller than him by quite a long way. There you go. I've got that over him, and he's got a few more record sales. There you go. Anyway, on with Ipswich Town. Fantastic. There are times when the job is a privilege, and that was one of them. Loved being there. It was brilliant. It was a great night. Chelsea played the part by being rubbish. Axel Disasi, he's just so close, isn't he, to being the headline writer's dream?
Yes, he is.
I mean, it's just, oh, come on, man. Just give us an extra consonant and we could be there. But he was... But Liam Delap, let's go straight to Liam Delap.
He's
what
so
a player.
Good. He's not only, like, he is a battering ram, right? He is. Like, his thighs are enormous, but he's so skillful as well.
I'm trying to think who he reminds me of. It's, again, we're going back to your sort of 70s, 80s style, sort of forward gripper, Mark Hughes-ish, almost like a young Mark Hughes, bit more pace than Hughesy.
Yeah, you see, I'd never see Mark Hughes, and forgive me if this isn't like getting it and just driving at a defence.
Well, you didn't. That's the memory of Mark Hughes is if the ball goes to Mark Hughes and wherever it goes, he holds it up.
Yeah,
and he's got about 5 defenders kicking his arse, and he's still got the ball, and then delivers a pass to a speeding Ryan Giggs or whatever. Oh God, Man United, what happens there? Anyway, and then you've got it just, and the thing is, it was a one-man attack at quite a lot of the time. But then you saw the intelligence of the pass that he played to Hutchinson. Because you could see the Chelsea players caught up with him, and they're thinking, what are his intentions? What's he going to do here? What's he going to do here? And he completely fooled them. Hutchinson had, goal open, brilliant finish, great celebration against a club that let him go. And the other thing is, Kieran McKenna talks about this, there's 6 players there that played in League One, including the goalie, Christian Walton. The talk ahead of the game was that Sanchez had at last been dropped by Chelsea. In fact, Muric, who is Ipswich's normal goalkeeper, has had a few wobbles recently. He struggled with kicking the ball out. Bring in Walton. He had a great game. And at the end of it, this is the thing that I noticed. They've won the first game. They've got to the end of 2024 and won the first Premier League game to complete a brilliant year. Everyone's celebrating. There's a lap of honour, but it isn't quite a lap of honour because you could see Kieran McKenna going, if we go a bit too wild after one win, that looks a bit, village or whatever. So you could see him trying to dampen it down, but there was a sort of Jurgen Klopp, with the crowd, and they loved it. And then, just when teams pull off that type of thing, it was just great fun, and it's it's what it's about, and Ipswich have been a credit to the Premier League since they've come up. A lot of the factor is, apart from Liam Delap, apart from Kieran McKenna, apart from Leif Davis, a player that I'm absolutely falling in love with, it's the atmosphere at Portman Road. You feel like you're being transported back to a stadium where football actually matters, where it isn't all about pounds, shilling and pence. And the funny thing is, actually, underneath it all, they are owned by an American finance fund. But hey, that's modern football, isn't it?
John, I think this is something you touched on in your report. Do you think Maresca underestimated them with his team selection? Would suggest maybe that was the case.
I think so. I suppose one thing you could say is that Chelsea have been playing that well, so he shuffles the pack. And what you've got, I suppose, at Chelsea is that you've got the Conference League team that are destroying everyone in front of them because they're playing, not particularly strong competition. And then you've got the Premier League where they've been doing quite well. I think the one player to mention here, João Felix. What is this guy doing at Chelsea?
Falling over a lot.
He cannot stand up straight when the ball is played to him. And it's clear that he is aware that the fans haven't taken to him. So he scored a goal, did a whole elaborate, haters celebration. But because he's not very good, he was half a yard offside and had to sort of withdraw the celebration. And as soon as the second goal went in, Maresca hooked him. He was like, right, I've had enough of that. And Maresca, you see, has to do this thing, doesn't he, with the political situation at Chelsea, with the 2 owners, which is one of those 2 owners brought in João Felix, and he's got to please that owner. So he's, I've given him game time, you've seen that. He did this a bit with Mudryk before.
Sounds like the sort of court of Henry VIII, doesn't it? Bring on this. I know this guy can't juggle, but we have to bring him on for a couple of minutes, because otherwise I'll have my head chopped off by someone in the Privy Council.
Yeah, we're back to Wolf Hall again, aren't we? It's and I think that's what you have to do. That's how you have to manage stuff. That will go on not at clubs, not just Chelsea, maybe a bit more on the continent. So you bring on João Felix, you go, oh, you see there, he wasn't quite working out, and then you don't have to play João Felix again, and that's a good point. Unfortunately, Nico Jackson comes on and misses a howler because that's what he might do. Just
to go back to Liam Delap, Nod, and I alluded to it in the intro, but from an England perspective, and this may be recency bias, i.e., the game I literally just saw, but he does excite me a bit more than Solanke or Ollie Watkins in that. What do we do when everybody when Harry Kane clearly gets another injury at the World Cup, so he's carrying a bus on his back.
He's such a complete striker, a proper centre forward. And again, like you talked about Mark Hughes, the player he reminds me of is probably a young Norman Whiteside, just in terms of having that mass physicality, but then also being incredibly skillful and really fast as well. One of the greatest things about him, and you talk about it in the England context, he's such a pain in the arse to play against. Defenders like hate him because he's pushing everyone, he's pulling everyone, he's occupying about 3 players at once. He and also there's a kind of there's a hint of like I know it's a different position, but like almost a Steven Gerrard of like he's got so much confidence and that driving part of his game. There's no sense like you compare him to someone like Xerxes, who I think is a good footballer, but at the wrong club. And at the wrong time. Like Xerxes really affected by his confidence at the moment. You can really tell that. But you can imagine Delap going to any club and not feeling inferior at all and just owning it. And yeah, he's massively exciting, and it'll be so interesting in terms of where he might go next, and that feels disrespectful to Ipswich, but he's so good. He should be playing in the Champions League.
What was City doing? Getting rid of him. I mean, there's just. I mean, yeah, there were 2 players there. I mean, funny enough, Cole Palmer in the first half, there was a point where he suddenly took control of the game, and you just think, "All right, here we go," because he has that poise. He's such a good player, and credit actually to Kieran McKenna for stuffing him out in the second half. But look at him, that swagger that he has. Like there was one bit where he missed a chance, and you could just see like. It's all right. There'll be one along in a bit, just that sort of the way. But Delap is a more wholehearted player, isn't he? And he's got that sort of the Gaza sort of it's the elbow.
Yeah.
You won't like to play against it because you might get something in the face when you. Yeah, it's such a great watch. It really is.
I don't know if there's a question on this, Barry, but it did strike me when. I mean, I know Kieran McKenna said it, but my mate Rob is an Ipswich fan, in our WhatsApp group was like, look, 6 of these guys of the starting 11 were in League One with Ipswich 2 seasons ago. And I suppose there are comparisons. Lots of people made this about Luton last year.
Well, Bournemouth did it as well. Remember a few years ago.
But I can't work out if it's at a quirk, like a sign of insane recruitment 2 years ago. I watch a lot of League One, right? And at no point do I think, I reckon 6 of these guys with a bit of help will beat Chelsea in 2 years. Like literally there's no part of me thinking that. Or is it a sign that actually, I don't know, just in terms of sort of ability of footballers in those leagues, that it isn't such a, I mean, I don't know. Like it seems, if you say Bournemouth did it, Luton have managed it, Ipswich have managed it.
Well, I watch Dulwich Hamlet. I wouldn't say regularly, but I probably go to 7 or 8 games a season. They're very good players in non-league. They're 7th tier, and they're all pretty good players. Some of them are a bit out of shape, and I think the main difference is they can't do things as quickly as league players or top flight players, and they can't do things well as consistently as top flight players. But I suppose. If you have a good coach, and Eddie Howe is a good coach, he did it with Bournemouth. Who was the other? Brentford. I guess they had
quite a few came up. What with Dean Smith was their manager, was he? Probably then. Yeah.
My old pal Ethan Pinnock, he's a Dulwich Hamlet old boy, and so it can be done. You need a really good coach. You need players to work hard for each other. You need them to be ego free. There's so many variables. So, but if they're all pulling together the same way Ipswich are, and you bring in a bit of quality, like there was no celebration from Amari Hutchinson last night, was there?
No, not at all. The penalty a bit soft, John. What do we do? I mean, I think it.
Oh yeah. But I think it's a referee's call, isn't it?
Yeah.
Referee's giving it. I mean, the charge, Jorgensen's charge was silly. You're inviting the contact, and Liam Delap made sure there was contact. So the weirdest thing was that decision took not very long for them to give the penalty. Then Felix is offside, which was
took forever.
Well offside.
Yeah.
Forever. It's like, what? How have you arrived? I mean, Let's not go for a beer.
No, you're right. I do like this question. Yeah, I do like this question from Auckland Guna. He makes a good point referring to what we said yesterday about Arsenal. He says, if Arsenal beating Ipswich without Saka meant their title challenge is over, what does Chelsea losing to Ipswich mean? It's a very, very good point. And actually, Noz, results like this just make it sort of feel even more inevitable that this title is Liverpool's, because none of the challengers, and maybe Arsenal are the only ones, I think now, who could put a run together, will get near them.
To me, it feels like a foregone conclusion. It's going to be Liverpool. But again, like we're talking about Ipswich and the fact that they've come up with these players. In a funny way, that's reflected in Liverpool, because it feels as if this season, more than any other, just being effective and being efficient is rewarded, because this Liverpool team or this Liverpool squad, they've got they've got world-class players, and they've got Salah and Alexander-Arnold, but their biggest strength is essentially not having a weakness. There's not. They're just a really well organized team with players knowing exactly what they're meant to do, and there's no obvious weakness in that team, and that's similar to a lot of these teams that are doing well this season, whether it's mid-table or even sort of teams like Ipswich, where it's just players who know what they're doing, know what they're meant to do, and essentially that is your superstar. The team is.
But it seems mad that that all the teams don't have. Look how much money. That's all they're doing. Like, it's mad that so few teams at the top level have that.
But again, the funny thing with Chelsea is Chelsea for a while looks as if they were going to challenge Liverpool, but it would have just been a chaotic sort of. It's the infinite monkey theory, isn't it? Like, you just throw a lot of players together, bring a manager in, and eventually, if you keep on doing that, one sort of combination of that sort of mess might actually do well. But yeah, it looks as if Chelsea are falling away, and again, it's that thing of like, if Chelsea fall away a little bit more, you can see the manager's job being in trouble. You can see them doing something daft like selling a load of players, bringing a load of others in, and then you've changed the whole alchemy of the team. Whereas Liverpool look as if they're even if Alexander-Arnold goes to Real Madrid, you can see that they're sustainable, and you can say that they've got something to build on. But yeah, this. I think that's the theme of this season. It's just like there's so many chaotic teams out there that if you are just efficient and smart, you're going to thrive.
My only other note is, I mean, Cucurella is such a shit, isn't he? Like, he's a good player. He is the pantomime villain of this season, isn't he? Like, he just went down, not touched at all. And I think it was Hutchinson or someone came in, he cleared the ball and he went down like he'd been killed. And I think the ref did say, look, we've checked, and like, nobody touched you, mate. So what are you doing? Anyway.
They got a bit heated and they lost it, Chelsea. They
did get a bit cross, didn't they? A lot of them got cross.
They weren't ready to lose that game, and it was. They sort of talking about the ovation. It was delayed by Chelsea sort of throwing a strop, and Ipswich having to calm down. Like, so you sorry, calm down. We're going to go over there.
Did anyone steal a security man's glasses?
Well,
I don't think so. All spectacles were accounted for.
Ed Sheeran probably, but yeah.
That'll do for part 2. We'll do Villa Brighton and any other business in part 3. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Villa Brighton was very much the third game on yesterday. Two teams that are doing okay, but just not quite at it, Barry, I would say. And it was quite a fun game.
It was a good game. 9th against 10th. And you'd imagine both sets of fans would have hoped their respective teams would be higher up the table, especially when they look up and see the likes of Fulham, Bournemouth, Forest, and I suppose to a lesser extent Newcastle above them, both going into the game on thoroughly unremarkable runs of form. Villa had won 3 and drawn 2 of their last 11 in the league, and Brighton had 5 draws and 2 defeats in their last 7. But they put on a good show. I think both managers were complaining afterwards about refereeing decisions. Both managers would probably think they should have won. And my main take from this was the Ollie Watkins conundrum. Mm-hmm. So obviously he started because John Duran was suspended. He scored a goal. He provided an assist, a good assist. But I still think he could have done so much more. He missed a couple of good chances. He picked the wrong pass a few times. And I'm a big Ollie Watkins fan. I think he's a terrific player. But, it was it seems harsh to criticise him when he had a hand in, scored one and had a hand in the other. But I do think he could have done more. And Villa, I'd be interested to hear what Dan has to say, but they make mistakes at the back and they waste chances up front, and that's what's costing them, I think, because they are an undeniably good side. And I think Unai Emery could have made some changes a lot earlier in this game. I don't think he brought anyone on till around the 75th minute or something, whereas Hurstler made three changes on the hour mark. He brought on Rutter, Mitoma and Minta, and they made a difference. Some of the Villa players look very tired, I think, and Leon Bailey he's just not playing well at the moment. He's can't do right for doing wrong.
The equaliser was beautiful. Lamptey to Pedro to Mitoma to Pedro to Lamptey. That was just a lovely, and the little flick from Pedro to Lamptey was great and a great finish. Brentford play Arsenal tomorrow. We'll cover that on Thursday's pod if we remember, of course. A rise Sir Gareth Southgate. We don't have to get into a deep discussion about whether we think the honours system is a good idea or silly. But do we think now that it does exist, Noz, that Gareth deserves the knighthood? A knighthood for what? Not taking the handbrake off, etc., etc.
I think in a lot of ways, just as much as it's obviously good news for him, it's a vindication for you. I think you've been a committed Southgateophile, for many years. So I hope you were punching the air.
Do you know what? I did listen to. I'm about halfway through his Desert Island Discs, and what strikes me is, though you're shaking your head actually, so I'm interested in what you think. He comes across as such a good guy, right? And I think he did so much good off the pitch for England as well as on the pitch. And he never got us over the line, but in many ways, sort of that's the ultimate thing for an England men's football manager, isn't it? That's the epitome of what they should be doing. And not that I care whether he has a knighthood or not, but I think he's a good person, and I think he was a good person to have in that role. And just quite like the guy,
I think though now he's a knight of the realm. He'll put on 4 extra coats of chainmail under his armour, and then an extra heavy armour. And he'll get legged up on his horse, and the horse will just collapse on the ground under the weight of all this protection.
He'll look good in the suit, won't he, when he goes for the... He's the type of guy that, has he been angling for this? I mean...
No, I don't think so. I think he's quite
he always
humble.
been...
I think he's a pretty humble guy. I'm
looking at his music collection. Hornsby in the Range, the way it is.
Now, he did say, do you know why he picked that? He picked that because it was the background music for the results on Grandstand.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, it was. And that's why I love that song as well. The Whole of the Moon, Waterboys, you can't knock that. That's a great song.
No, of course not. No, everyone was decent.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran, I won't say anything. The one I always with this one is when a footballer chooses his favourite piece of classical music. I mean, come on. It's like, I always reach for the Vivaldi when I'm practicing my keepy-ups in the garden.
Sound like you're a snob, John. I know you're a music snob there, but, everyone's allowed to like classical music.
Of course they are, but I rather doubt that footballers listen to classical music.
Well, I turned on the radio the other day, and it happened to be on Radio 4, and they were just playing choral music from Notre Dame Cathedral, and it was like that scene in The Shawshank Redemption where Andy Dufresne breaks into the guard tower and puts on the opera, and all the lads are just enchanted by it. That I was like that. And I'm going to make it my business to seek out more choral music.
Do you reckon it's like that round at Wilson's? With, just choral music pumping in all day? Possibly. I'll find out one day.
Wilson doesn't like music.
No music. Yeah, he's an iconoclast. There's no art or music or culture anywhere near him. Was that Mozart's Marriage of Figaro? I think in Shawshank. But
I'm interested to know you because I kind of interrupted, but as soon as you mentioned Southgate's Desert Island Disc, Nas started shaking his head.
Yeah.
I want to know why.
No, it was. I mean, the biggest crime was talking about how much he loved U2. But yeah, I mean, it was in a lot of ways. It was sort of like a callback to like the classic match and shoot sort of Q&As where it's like Phil Collins, Simply Red, to like...
Yeah, he feels a bit too young for that type of thing, right? Like I said, those songs are... Because Gareth Southgate's like born like 71, 72,
yeah,
so...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's a bit... It's a bit... Maybe it's just like his older brother's music collection or something.
But that's perfectly timed birth to be into U2 and know all their canon or discography.
Early U2, is that okay? Or is it all...
I'm not a fan, to be honest. I just can't take Bono seriously.
I think they've written some hits. Like there are some songs I'm not turning off if they come on. But you know, I represent the middle ground. I know that. I know where I sit in this oeuvre on this Zoom call.
I will follow on in the car the other day and thought that's all right, but that's very early, isn't it? So Bono is a Wally. That's the point, isn't it?
Nas?
Do you know what his choices reminded me of? Have you ever seen that video from, I think it was like early 90s where the Billa squad are talking about their favourite drinks?
Yeah.
And Gareth Southgate says water. Just like perfect. But yeah, like you've got Ed Sheeran, you've got Adele, you've got Mary J. Blige and U2 with one. You've got Tears for Fears, Carpenters. So yeah, it's exactly what you'd expect. But going back to what you were saying, Max, he like, joking aside, he comes across as such a lovely guy, and his greatest sort of facet of his management of England was that bringing the nation together, and also like he's just a statesman in a lot of ways, isn't he? He was far more statesman-like in his role as England manager than any prime minister that was sort of like during that tenure. So I think he deserves it on that alone. But like as we've kind of alluded to, I think we might be different levels of wary about like how much weight we should give to the honour system.
Wasn't it Villa or maybe West Brom? I'm sure the fans won't mind if I mix them up. They were during the 80s. I think it was Villa. They were the first team to go on a tour to China. And one of their players was famously asked...
West Brom it was.
Was it West Brom? Sorry. Apologies to everyone. And one of their players... They visited the Great Wall, and one of their players was asked, what did you make of the Great Wall of China? And his reply was, it's just a wall, innit? You've seen one, you've seen them all.
His name was John Truick, played for Oxford United later, I think, with Trevor Hebbard. And he... I think the quote is, when you've seen one wall, you've seen them all. And like that. Now, the problem for John Truick is that's all anyone knows about him, is that he said that. And he's tried to deny that he wasn't a joke. He's tried to say it's a joke. And he was. I was going to say about Gareth Southgate, considering the times that Gareth Southgate was manager through outside of football, you consider the rather, 2017 through to 2024, your Brexits, your COVIDs, and he was sort of the right manager to have around him.
Your knees, your rainbow armbands.
He was the right manager to have around in that era of war on woke and all that stuff. He always guided the path through that, and I think that was as great as the football achievements were, and they were great in a sense compared to what came before. Sometimes the football wasn't so great. That was his main facet, that he was so laser guided on that stuff, and credit has to go for him because
I would argue not towards the end. He
well, on the Jordan Henderson Saudi thing, that was the thing, but and
the Harry Kane armband, and maybe. But anyway, yes,
Alan Hansen MBE, I think great player, great broadcaster. Dawn Astle as well, for services to footballers with dementia, as well as Penelope Watson, who I wasn't aware of, but she is the wife of David Watson, former Man City, amongst other players, played 65 times for England.
I was going to say, Max, one of the England games recently, they had a sort of 5-minute Gabriel Clark made feature about Dave Watson's. I think he's got CTE, and one of his problems with that, and her guiding him through it. And they took him to an England game, and clearly he was a great player in the 70s, a Wilson Sunderland player, and it was an incredibly moving thing to watch. You move me to tears, actually. Such a terrible thing, and it's one of those things, isn't it, that football is having to face, and hopefully they're going to face full in the face rather than a lot of the time, because Dawn Astle, who you mentioned there, has had such a fight over, the brain injuries that her father received, and she's been a true heroine, actually.
Yeah, I think she's been on the pod. I've interviewed her a number of times. She's been absolutely incredible in her fight. And she actually said, being recognised with this award from the King is an incredible honour. I'm filled with a profound sense of gratitude, humility and pride, but I also reflect on the fact that this recognition comes after the tragic loss of my lovely dad. I'm deeply thankful for the support of my amazing family, all of those who've shown us incredible support throughout the years, West Brom, and of course the amazing West Brom fans, my football family. This moment marks the culmination of a journey defined by persistence, courage, and an unwavering desire to make a difference to others. It acknowledges past achievements and serves as a foundation for future ones. When facing life's challenges, dare to dream big and have the courage to pursue those dreams, even when they seem impossible at first. Yeah, it's been, I don't know, Barry, we did a special on this. With
John Stiles was on.
John Stiles was on it. And it's probably something we should revisit, isn't it? But full credit to Dawn and to Penelope, and Chris Sutton was on that as well, wasn't he? He lost his dad. And,
yes.
He was incredibly good on that pod. Anyway, that'll do for today. Thanks everybody. Thank you, Barry.
Thanks, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Noz.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Football Weekly is produced by Joel Grove. Our executive producer is Danielle Stevens. Thanks for listening to us in 2024. We'll provide you with the same level. You can decide what that level is of entertainment and insight in 2025. And we'll be back on Thursday.
This is The Guardian.